You are not running from anything, that's the first thing to make clear. You are not fleeing war, famine, or punishment. You are leaving Springfield, Illinois in the spring of 1846 because the West promises something better. Land, a future. A life that they say begins where the known map ends. Around you, there are no desperate faces. There are entire families. Women, men, small children perched on creaking wooden wagons that groan as if they already know what awaits. You see strong oxen, reasonable supplies, rifles hung without urgency. You see normalcy. And that's what's unsettling, because none of this feels like madness. There's no real hurry, no immediate threat pushing you forward. You could have stayed, you could have left next year, you could have waited, but you choose to go now. There are about 87 people, the Donners, the Reeds, names that today echo tragedy, but back then were just neighbours. Ordinary people convinced that an ambitious decision can't go wrong if made in a group. The atmosphere at first is almost festive. Trivial conversations, plans, children laughing, unaware of maps or seasons. You don't think much about it either. Winter is distant, abstract, like when today you accept terms and conditions without reading them. The road to California already exists. It's not an unknown adventure. Others have travelled it. There are established routes, known stops, repeated stories of success. If they could do it, so can we. And here is the first mistake, though you don't know it yet. Because you confuse what's possible with what's inevitable. You confuse optimism with foresight. You confuse being in a group with being safe. As you move forward, the world is still wide open. Grass, water, open skies. Nothing suggests that months later, the same sky will become a white lid you cannot lift. If you stop now, looking at this scene from outside, everything seems reasonable, even sensible. And that's the most uncomfortable part. Because this story does not begin with a scream, it begins with a calm decision. Tell me this before moving on. If everything in your life seemed fine, would you have any real reason to say no? You arrive at Fort Bridger at the end of July, 1846. The caravan stops, the animals rest, dust settles on the clothes, on the ox hides. The map is on a wagon board, and there it is, the Hastings Cutoff. Promises to save time, promises a shorter route to California. Promises. No one really knows what shortcut truly means in this land. Those who suggest it speak with confidence. Their voices don't tremble. They tell you it will be faster, smoother, that deserts and mountains have already been conquered by men like them. The word risk feels distant, abstract, a concept you don't apply to your children or your spouse. And you say yes, not because you're reckless, not because you're crazy, but because you trust those who are confident. And that starts the chain. The Hastings Cutoff isn't a path, it's a challenge in disguise. A desert without enough water, steep canyons that require chopping and digging, mountains that look small on a map but rise like walls of stone. Every mile costs more than expected. Every step drags the caravan, weeks beyond schedule. The first signs appear quickly. Oxen begin to fail, some collapse and don't rise. Wagons get stuck. Provisions are consumed faster than anyone wants to admit. Morale tightens like bowstrings. And at first, you remain convinced the decision was good. You still believe there is margin, that lost time can be recovered. That snow is far off, much farther away. But winter does not wait, because in the Sierra Nevada, there will be no turning back. And what now feels like a simple delay will, in weeks, become the first line of a white hell. Tell me, if someone promises it's faster, and you see it is already harder than expected, would you have continued? Or would you have stopped the march? You cross the Great Salt Lake Desert and the Wasatch Mountains. Each day is a battle of sweat and dust. The sun burns as if it has a grudge. Sand gets into your clothes, your eyes, your teeth. Water runs out too quickly, and the springs that should be there aren't. You watch the children struggling to pull the wagons, and fear settles in before the snow even appears. Oxen collapse one after another. The caravan slows. The wheels groan. Silence grows heavy. The dead animals aren't just a logistical problem. They're proof that time is slipping away. Food disappears faster than anyone admits. Shouts of frustration mix with the wind's moan. Arguments become inevitable. Men who once shared tobacco and stories now glare at each other. Families sense the world shrinking. Every step demanding more than strength, they demand a willpower most do not have. You walk and your feet feel detached from your body. Each stone, each climb, each mile, marked by exhaustion that drags at your very soul. The so-called shortcut reveals itself as a lie dressed in hope, and as you move, you realize something fundamental. This desert does not forgive mistakes. It does not reward blind trust. It does not tolerate miscalculated ambition. Every decision made weeks ago, every yes you gave without thinking, now carries a cost. And here's the question: if the land itself turned against you and told you that everything you thought was safe was a lie, what would you do? Keep moving or surrender to it? They reach the Sierra Nevada on October 28, 1846. The air changes before you even notice. There's a cold you can't see, seeping through clothes, biting into your bones. Then comes the snow. First light, like a warning, then constant, relentless, rapid, covering the ground, the trees, the tents, the oxen, as if the whole world were going to sleep and wouldn't let you wake up. You look back and know there is no turning back. Every hour lost in the desert now weighs on you like chains. Roads that once seemed open are now walls of white you cannot cross. Every bite of food in your wagon feels heavier than your own body. Every glance around shows the same discomfort, desperation settling in for everyone. And the worst is not the snow, not the cold. It's the time that is no longer yours. The sense that every step you took, every shortcut chosen, every trust handed without question has brought you here. Too late. You and those around you can still move, but every effort costs more than imaginable. The animals barely walk, provisions are minimal, and morale is a thread so thin that a single gust of wind could snap it. And as the storm falls and the light fades, you realize something no one dares say aloud. The West that promised land, food, and a future is now a frozen labyrinth, a place that does not negotiate with ambition, only survival or death. The snow doesn't stop, day after day, week after week, until the world you knew becomes a solid block of white. Tents buried, horses trapped under frost, wagons that don't move an inch. The cold seeps into your bones and you feel every muscle stiffen, as if life itself is pulling back. Your hands crack, your lips split, and the food is just a memory smelling of desperation. Patrick Breen keeps a diary. Each day a record: temperature, snow, dead animals, arguments, fear. The dates become meaningless numbers. November 20th, 21st, 22nd, and you feel time no longer belongs to you. Every morning, identical to the last. Snow, cold, hunger. Every night, an eternity. Morale fractures. The group that once laughed, that shared stories, now mutters, complains, watches each other with suspicion. Families huddle together, seeking warmth where there is only wind and ice. And as you hear this, you can't help comparing it to your modern comfort. A sofa, hot coffee, Wi-Fi working without problems, and there, thousands of miles and years away, people are buried alive by human decisions in a climate that does not care. Every attempt to move is useless. Every hope that the snow will stop is false. The world has simply stopped. And you begin to understand, strength is not enough here. Preparation is not enough. Every past mistake comes back to demand its price with interest. December 1846. The snow keeps falling, and the world is no longer a place, it's a solid block of white. 15 people decide that waiting here is a slower kind of death. They call themselves the Forlorn Hope, and the name needs no explanation. Lost hope, impossible hope, desperate hope. They enter the mountains on foot. Every step tears at flesh and at will. Fingers freeze, feet blister and bleed. Stomachs roar like wild animals trapped inside the body. Men carry what they can. Women carry what they cannot afford to drop. Children walk with empty, distant stares, still clinging to whatever innocence the cold hasn't stolen yet. The land is hostile, each slope higher than the last, each blizzard pushing them back, as if the mountains themselves are saying, "You do not belong here." Food disappears, and with it dignity. First beef, then boiled hides, then bones crushed and sucked clean. And when even that is gone, the dead become food. There is no drama in it, no speeches, no madness, only silence, and the understanding that survival has crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed. The boundary between life and monstrosity blurs, not because they choose it, but because there is no other choice. forward, or death. 8 do not survive. Their bodies remain behind, swallowed by snow, left as quiet warnings. Each loss cuts deeper than the cold, deeper than hunger, deeper than despair. And what you see here is not heroism, not legend. It is fear, cold, hunger, pain, human beings reduced to the single instinct to keep breathing, one more step, one more hour. So now I ask you, if you were one of those 15, carrying the impossible, with nothing ahead but white horizon after white horizon, death whispering with every breath, would you keep walking, or would you lie down and surrender in silence? Those who did not join the forlorn hope remain trapped in the snow. Wagons are buried, horses are dead, every tent a makeshift coffin, food dwindles to nothing, the remaining animals are bones and hides. Human flesh quietly becomes an option, calculated a line no one wants to cross, until necessity leaves no alternative. Hunger is not a roar, it is a knife lodged in your stomach. Every passing day reminds you that the mistakes of the past, the shortcut, the hurry, the blind trust, now weigh heavier than the snow on your shoulders. Families watch each other. Eyes reflect a terror you cannot forget. Children look at parents as if expecting miracles. Adults find no comfort in words, no solace in prayer. The dead become fuel, sustenance, silence nobody dares mention. And you, observing from your warm sofa, feel a chill. This is not sensationalism. It is not a tale exaggerated to frighten. It is the raw truth of humans, reduced to their most basic instinct. Eat to survive, survive to tell the horror. Every poor decision made months ago now translates into physical and moral costs no man can fully calculate. And as you watch, you understand there is no justice here. No heroes, no happy endings. Only survival measured in breaths and human warmth, stolen from death. February 1847. After months buried in snow, in fear, rescuers finally reach Donner Lake. For the survivors, it is a tangible miracle. Their eyes barely believe what they see. Men and women walking, carrying provisions, speaking words that sound impossible. Some whisper, some cry, some simply stare as if ghosts were observing ghosts. Are you men from California, or are you from heaven? The diaries record it. That simple, desperate question captures those who could no longer tell life from death, frostbite from madness. But the rescue is not easy. The rescuers carry supplies on foot, cross miles of deep snow, fight blizzards and terrain that spring has yet to soften. Every survivor brought out is a feat of physical, logistical and moral endurance. Each step a triumph against a mountain that held them captive. And you understand something immediately. Help came, yes, but it was not instant salvation. There were no universal shouts of joy, no unbroken embraces. It came slowly, in waves, taking each man, woman and child out of death, leaving behind the memory of what they had to do to survive. And you, with your modern comforts, heat, food, a roof that won't collapse under snow, feel the shiver. The difference between them and you is simple. They walked on the edge of death. You only watch from the safety of your ordinary life. Now tell me, if you were there, on the brink, seeing a miracle in the form of men bringing food and hope, would you have the strength to rise and move, or would you stay in the frozen silence, surrendered to inevitability? April 1847. Months after the first rescue, Louis Kesselberg is the last to leave Donner Lake. He is alone, surrounded by snow that is no longer a threat. Now it is memory. His body bears the marks of hunger, disease, desperation. His hands shake. His mind recalls every choice made, every bite consumed to survive, every death witnessed. The mountain no longer holds him, but the weight of history crushes him. Because surviving here is not a clean achievement. No medals, no applause, only questions. What would you have done in his place? Where would you draw the line between life and morality? The myth of the Donner Party told for generations. A snow accident, heroic pioneers, a fatal shortcut. The reality is far more brutal. A chain of ordinary human decisions combined with misplaced trust, haste, and a relentless winter turned common men and women into specters at the edge of the unimaginable. Every preserved story, every diary, every rescuer's account reveals the same truth. The tragedy was not random, it was not exaggeration, it was extreme survival in a scenario no one should face. And you, sitting in comfort, understand why this story still resonates, because it is not just about snow, flesh, and death. It is about choices, trust, and humanity pushed to its limits. Remember this before you close your eyes. Giving a like and subscribing is free. But knowing the story and understanding its lessons, that is a privilege few survive forgetting.